thank you to Protect the Harvest for sponsoring this next discussion. Again, I think the flow of things has probably illustrated to you why we're moving on to this panel, which is hearing from farmers and ranchers themselves who are out there engaging with their communities, particularly on social media about issues in animal agriculture. Before we get started, I have a poll question for everyone, which is, do you use social media to engage? I don't see the poll coming. There we go. Do you use social media to engage on animal ag issues? So you do or you don't. And if you don't, there's a few different options for why. Is it time? Are you worried about negativity like we just talked about? Maybe now's not a good time to ask you, and we just went through kind of the worst case scenario of what can happen. But do you engage on animal ag issues on social media? Let's see the results. Okay, so about 50-50, about 42% are actively involved in using social media. The rest do somewhat, but would like to do more, or they don't for a few different reasons. There's only a slim percentage who are not interested, so that's great. And I'm sure even those folks will find value in hearing from our farmer and rancher panel. I'm going to introduce our panelists and then turn it over to them to share more of their experiences. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Marissa Hake. She is a veterinarian known online as Calf Vet. We'll hear from Ryan Volk, a fifth-generation farmer from California with almonds and poultry. He is known as the California Farmer. Tara Vanderdusen is a New Mexico dairy farmer and an environmental scientist who is known online as New Mexico Milkmaid. And Michelle Miller is an Iowa sheep, beef, and crop farmer, better known as the Farm Babe. With that, I will turn things over to Marissa and the rest of our panelists. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Dr. Marissa Hake. I'm a veterinarian. You can find me online at the Calf Vet. You can advance slide. So I want to dive right in today and talking about the value of engagement. I think we often forget the why behind the things that we're doing and why we're sharing. And really, at the end of the day, it's to build trust on social media, which also leads to building loyalty around a product or a brand. We want to be able to reach outside of agriculture, and who we want to target is the movable middle. And this group of people are the mom at the grocery store who's just trying to make the best decision for her family, right? So those are the people that we're trying to target. And social media also helps to reinforce our social license. And I'd like to touch on this topic a little bit more. Advance slide. So the thought behind social license, and I'm not going to say that these are studies or statistics or facts, because it's not. These are the beliefs, perceptions, and opinion held by our consumers, and they are granted by our consumers. And their opinions can change based on the new information they acquire, like an activist video. So hence, our social license has to be earned and then maintained. And on this chart here, you can see that we want to stay on the left side of this scale to keep our social license, when we keep that through ethics, values, and self-regulation. When the scale tips and we go over to the right side of the scale, we're now under social control. This is higher cost, and we see legislation and regulation among our practices. So again, we want to make sure that we don't erode consumer trust and that we can stay on the left side of this scale. Can you advance slide, please? So this is just touching again on how social media can be a powerful tool to interact with our consumers and find common ground, right? Yes, I raise your food and I'm a veterinarian, but I'm also a mom, a Christian, a Spartan, an equestrian, and an Enneagram type 8, and that just builds common ground with our consumers. Advance slide. So again, this slide just reinforces the notion that consumers do want to be hearing from farmers. 62% of millennials say that when a brand engages with them on social media, they're more likely to be a loyal customer. 63% of millennials want to stay updated on brands through social networks. And this one I thought was really interesting, that 86% of millennials wanted to learn about relevant environmental issues from the brand itself. they are looking for us to self-regulate and keep our social license. Next slide, please. Again, we know that social media is huge, right? 88% of 18 to 29-year-olds are using Facebook. And I thought the stat from Social Chorus was really interesting, that 95% of millennials in the United States say their friends are the most credible source of information. That's Karen on Facebook, right? Karen is the most credible source to our consumers. And so we as farmers need to be the Karens out there on Facebook as well, or social media, putting out real trusting information. Next slide. I just want to do a quick double click down into this study. It looked at the insights and behaviors of the US dairy consumer. And I wanted to click down onto number 2 when transparency is expected. Advanced slide. So again, our consumers expect transparency, and more than 2/3 of consumers want to know more about ingredients, sourcing, and manufacturing processes when they are considering dairy purchases. Next slide, please. And within that, within the sourcing practices, 70% of our consumers must know or would like to know about how their food is raised. And that 70% is us. We're the farmers on the front line who can give our consumers the information about how their food is raised. So also I thought was really interesting in a report by the Center for Food Integrity found that farmers ranked high among consumers for one, being held responsible for safe food, as well as ranking high for being trusted to ensure safe food. So they ranked 3 above federal agencies and food companies, which were 8 and 11 respectively. So it just helps reinforce that farmers are the ones that our consumers are looking to know more about how their food is raised. Next slide. So I want to end my section today by saying that being a farmer on the front line can be scary. It's time consuming, it's demanding, especially for people that are not traditionally trained in public relations, right? Farmers, veterinarians, this isn't our background. And so we make mistakes, sometimes we cross lines, we get attacked by activists. We often internalize a lot of this, and it can be very mentally draining, and with some of the backlash that we receive. So I just want to put in a reminder that we need to support these people who are standing up for our industry. And with that, I will let this go to Ryan out in California.
All right, thank you, Marissa. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So yes, I am Ryan Volk, otherwise known as the California Farmer, on Instagram, Facebook, and I also have a YouTube channel that I try and promote agriculture on. And I have the unique perspective of being kind of with everyone here in animal agriculture. We raise poultry. We have a chicken operation that we do, that we raise about 300,000 chickens a flock. And we've been doing poultry since 1989 when my dad started doing that. We've been in livestock many years before that. Both sides of my family have been ranching for generations and generations. But also the unique perspective of being on the trend that we're seeing with this plant-based agriculture, plant-based products and things like that with the almonds. And so we started growing almonds about 7 years ago, and it's been an interesting experience. And so I've been able to be a part of that and managing the almond side of things, as well as still working for my dad out at the chicken ranch. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the thing that I really wanted to focus on today is talking about having this perspective that I have of the animal agricultural side and the plant-based side. Is we can be sometimes our own worst enemies. Agriculture really needs to be united. And that's where we can see right there, if united we stand, divided we fall. And so agriculture as a whole is being really scrutinized at these times. And so we really need to stick together and try and uplift and share each other's experiences and really make it so that it's an experience we all are a part of and that we can all share. So like Marissa was saying, much of our society is really wanting to find and source where their food is coming from and know where that's coming from, and where they're turning has never been more important. Like Marissa was saying, a lot of times they are turning to social media. They're turning to their friends. They're turning to Facebook, Instagram, things like that to find that. So we really are trying our best to stand on the front lines and be able to share our story, to be the people that they can turn to. And so as we do that, we need to make sure that when we post and we are sharing things on our social media and engaging on social media, that we are not demeaning anyone else, that we're not talking bad about any other crops or commodities or things like that, that we are all in this together. And I've been grateful to have this support that I've had through social media, through Instagram and Facebook, especially on Instagram. You can see in this picture on my slide here, this is a group of friends that are all promoting agriculture, their specific crops or commodities on Instagram and other social media platforms, and they're doing great jobs. And being able to, looking at that picture, there are so many different crops and commodities represented there, and that we're all able to help each other and work together and sharing our story of agriculture. Next slide, please. So like I said, this picture here actually came at the perfect time as I was creating these slides for this presentation. I actually got tagged on Instagram. You can get tagged in different things like that. And this lady, she tagged me in this picture along with a few other awesome agricultural advocates on social media. And she was just sharing how, kind of that support, how you can see in this picture, there are a lot of dairy products in her fridge, but you can also see that blue container of the Blue Diamond Almond Breeze, that almond milk in her fridge. And she was just really kind of, showcasing that there really is room in the fridge for both. And that's one of the things that was great about the time we live in, is being able to have the choices that we do have, of being able to choose, how much food and how much we have, that we're able to make those choices. And like with my own personal self, I prefer dairy milk. I do. I love drinking milk every day. I love dairy products. My wife, she prefers almond milk. She's an Idaho girl. She's grown up right next to dairies and things like that, but she prefers the almond milk. But like I said, there's just so much room in our fridge for all of these different types of crops and commodities. And it's okay that we don't agree on every little thing. We don't have to agree on every little thing. And when we know that as farmers, sometimes we can get prideful and we can tend to take on, well, I don't know why our neighbor's doing that or whatever it may be, but we got to remember that we're all in this together, that in the big scheme of things, we're really all on the same team. So as we engage on social media, let's make sure that we're telling a story of agriculture and agriculture as a whole, and trying to support each other all that we can. So it's just a unique perspective that we're able to take here on our ranch, on our farm, coming from livestock and also with the plant-based materials like with almonds. And what's so cool is that people don't understand, being in California, we have such a tie to the dairy industry. All our neighbors around us are dairy farmers, and a lot of them not only are dairy farmers, they also have almond orchards. And so it's been really interesting. And we use the byproducts from the almonds to support the dairy industry. And so the holes that are around the almond, they will get shipped off for feed for cattle at dairies. The shells will get shipped off for bedding, for livestock bedding. So it really all kind of helps work together, and our wallets are really all tied together. So let's just try and do a better job of sharing agriculture and doing that. And with that, I will go ahead and pass along to Tara.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. So I am Tara Vanderdusen, and I'm a dairy producer in Eastern New Mexico. And I also work as an environmental scientist, as well as share online as the New Mexico Milkmaid. With my background in like environmental science, I tend to focus my efforts online about dairy sustainability and about the greater agriculture sustainability story. Please advance slide. So I don't post it to scare you, and I'm sorry about the language, but I wanted to be really honest about what farmers are up against when sharing online. And I wanted to give some examples of how they share your post and end up attacking you. So some of the ways that they do that, the most common is sharing your post on Facebook, which you can see the bottom center one, Lisa, she shared my post and encouraged people to come and attack my page. The far right one was an Instagram share. So they screenshotted conversations I was having and shared it on their stories. And then the center top one is just comments on your page or reviews you can receive. And so, kind of what, to go off of what Dr. Hicks said, it can be really scary and stressful when you're going through, an attack. There's not really like a better word for it. But there is things you can do. And it's always important to remember, like, these things will pass. Some of the things I've done, a combination of these, is like unpublish your page for a couple days, block and delete, and ask for help. So all of these posts that I shared are about me eating that cheeseburger. I shared the cheeseburger post back in November, and it just went crazy. And actually, Dr. Hake jumped on and helped me, as well as my husband, just block and delete. And 3 thumbs was better than just me blocking and deleting and keeping on top of it. And so you can find a lot of support online from your fellow farmers and just allies within the industries to help you through these kind of attacks. But there are positive outcomes from these as well. I always encourage people to kind of try and rise above these hateful comments. Don't engage, don't participate in them, because they always make the activists look worse than it makes you look. I have had so many people message me and be like, I can't believe people would say that. Like, it makes me not want to be a part of, the vegan activist community because of the hateful ways they behave online. And so it can be positive for you. It can increase your engagement. I had a milk chug challenge that got hate, and it went so much bigger, and I ended up raising more money for the cause. You can gain new followers, lots of likes and shares that are positive. Like, it's not all negative. And you learn from these. Like that post about McDonald's, I probably should have done a little bit more research about what I had shared. And so it does hold you to a higher standard to really think about your posts and like what you're putting out there. You can advance slide, please. But worse than the activist attack for me is the fighting between farmers. And this is going to really play well off of Ryan's presentation, and there may be a little bit of repeat, so I'm sorry about that. But that top picture is all headlines that I found on Facebook in like a 2-minute search that dairy farmers shared about almond farmers. And it was that almond milk is killing the bees. And I was so disappointed to see how many dairy farmers shared that post, because we are all in this together. The information in those posts was put out by activist groups. And so by us sharing that, we were only supporting the activist groups and furthering their agenda and their causes. And so it's really disappointing to see that. And then also fighting within our industry is the bottom post of dairy farmers fighting amongst themselves, small versus large. I had never heard the word mega dairy until it was actually published in a dairy magazine, which was extremely disheartening. Also on that picture is of my daughter at the very bottom. It was shared by a fellow farmer to further like her conversation about small versus large dairies and being anti-large. It to date is the most hurtful post I have ever had on a social media thing. The activists, I can understand hate, but to have one of my fellow dairy farmers post a picture of my child online to further their agenda just devastated me. And I just think that there is more positive ways that we can have conversations. If you'll advance the slide, please. Going back to what Ryan said, I promise we didn't plan this, but united we stand. If activists are attacking one industry, the next week it could be your industry. If they're attacking large farms one day, it could be small farms the next day. Like their end goal is to end animal agriculture. And we really have to stand united. I agree with Ryan that we may not all have to agree. Like, I don't think almond milk should be called almond milk, but it doesn't mean I want him to like go out of business or be attacked by activists for harming bee populations. Like we can disagree while still supporting each other. And this photo like goes exactly to what Ryan said. That's me in front of a ton of holes from peanuts. We all work together collaboratively. And from an environmental like sustainability standpoint, it makes us stronger by working together. The waste of one farmer can be a valuable resource to another. And that's the powerful story we should be talking about and sharing online. I think we can have industry discussions and we can have disagreements without like airing our dirty laundry to all of consumers for us to like fight about. And so I think that that's just like the main thing that I want to say is, while, you know, we're sharing online, support us, support farmers. There is ways to offer support and not tear each other down. So with that being said, I will pass it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Tara, and good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Miller, known as the Farm Babe. The Farm Babe, thefarmbabe.com is my website, and you can find me on social media as Farm Babe, or the Farm Babe is my handle. A little bit about our farm is just kind of what I wanted to start off with, is how we do grow different types of row crops. We're here in Northeast Iowa, so we've got corn, soybeans, oats, hay, rye, raise some beef cattle and lambs. So that's a little bit about our farm. And then I'm a columnist with agdaily.com and really utilize that social media platform to bridge the gap between consumers and farmers through different social media platforms, as an influencer, through speaking engagements, and just any way I can utilize this platform to educate consumers where their food comes from and support farmers. So if we transition to the next slide, this was just a little bit of a case study. I wanted to share a personal story of something that happened, kind of to echo the theme of what's happened this morning, but also kind of what Tara was talking about when you get hateful messages like this. So if you look at the picture on the left, it's a picture of me you see holding a piglet. January 1st of this year, I toured my friend's pig farm, and they have, you know, a couple thousand sows. It's a pretty large scale farm here in my community. And I had taken a bunch of photos in it and was just showing the transparency and talked about all the care that went into producing pork. And it was a pretty popular, well-received post. I was just saying, hey, look, ringing in the New Year's with adorable baby piglets. And it was fun. But then the vegan animal rights activists got a hold of it, and it was shared across 600 vegan animal rights groups on social media. And so it ended up being pretty frustrating, because what started off as fantastic went south very quickly, with 9,000 comments I had on that one post before I ended up just having to delete it, which really bothered me that I had to delete it, because I didn't want the vegan animal rights activists to feel like they won, right? But I was leaving for vacation that day. And so to have all this negativity was really wearing me down. I had enlisted the help of friends to help me monitor the comments, but it just wasn't enough. It was almost like it was some sort of computer generated attack of some sort, where all these comments were coming in on multiple posts, the same comment all over. It was almost like they were showing up on posts from like 2016. Like, it was the weirdest thing. It was almost like some sort of computer generated algorithm. Very bizarre. And I do want to preface this by saying that this is a very, very rare instance. I don't want people to be discouraged from advocating for agriculture based on one bad situation, because 99% of the time it's wonderful. But in this one situation, after I deleted that post, I was trying to decide, you know, what can we do to rise above this? Like, how can we do something that can make an impact to kind of put them in their place and almost have their efforts backfire? And so I ended up writing an article for my column on Ag Daily, which is on the left there. And you can see towards the bottom, you know, it had 1,800 likes. It was a positive, well-received article. But in it, I ended up kind of exposing all the negativity. I had screenshot all the hatred. And if you look at the comment sections here, I want to punch that smile off your ugly face. I would kill to kill you. You deserve to get cancer. These were the very tame comments I received. I saved the vulgar ones. I saved the ones where they had memes of me with a chainsaw. They just photoshopped stuff of me killing. It was horrible. It was really, really, really horrible. But what I ended up doing was I decided to start a hashtag called #DonateTheHate. And what I did was I said, for every negative animal rights activist comment I received, I was going to personally donate $1 to a charity that directly benefits the animal agriculture industry. Boy, that shut them up. So that was fun, right? Like we could sit here and take all these thousands of negative comments, but instead I ended up getting about 40 negative comments, right? So it really quieted them to say, all right, you guys, go ahead, leave your hatred comments in the comment section. And for every comment, I will donate. So I donated to Protect the Harvest, to Animal Ag Alliance, to NAIA, and to a couple other different charities that directly help support our industry and our cause. And so I thought it was a really effective way to hashtag donate the hate, to say, every so often, maybe one of the activists wouldn't read the article and they would just say something nasty in the comments, to which I could respond, thank you so much. $1 has been donated to the Animal Agriculture Alliance in your honor. Thank you. And so it was kind of like, oh crap. So I really love this, but I mean, I'm one person. I had to limit it at $1,000 max, right? Because I don't have that kind of money to be throwing around if they were to just come in and with like 10,000 comments. So I had to cap it at what I, as one person, could afford. But I want to share this story as a way to get our creative juices flowing as an industry, to say, what could we do to donate? Maybe we could donate a pound of meat to the hungry. Maybe we could partner with Feeding America. Maybe we could do something to create a positive, charitable, helpful message surrounding the hashtag Donate the Hate. So I just wanted to share that and explain that with the negativity came positivity. And to echo what Tara had said, the bottom right screenshot is my engagement. So you have these basic rates of engagement that kind of go through, and all of a sudden, boom, 9,000 angry comments, thousands of shares. That post had gone so viral before, I unfortunately had to delete it. But before that happened, and I had shared this in different farming groups to say, hey, could you guys help out in the comments? I'm kind of getting attacked here. It's really important to have that support within each other in agriculture to help with comments. But the feedback that I received in these social media groups had said, I'm really thankful that that happened, because it gave me the opportunity to share this with my friends. And so while seeing the negativity from the activists, you're also seeing the opportunity to say, hey, look at how awful these groups are. Here's why you probably don't want to be a part of the vegan movement. And here's what you can actually learn from farmers and see the full truth perspective of agriculture direct from the people that do it. So this is just a case study that I wanted to share, to talk about what we can do to think about our industry as a whole, turn that negative into a positive. So with the hashtag Donate the Hate, I would like to thank you guys for tuning in today, and go ahead and turn this back to Hannah. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much to all of you. If everyone wants to bring your video and audio back up, we will get Tara, Ryan, and Dr. Hake back up on the screen. Dr. Hake, I want to start with you. First of all, a few years ago, one of our speakers at Summit said that we all needed to find our bacon. So whatever makes us super unique and people love, and that was kind of the tagline of that year's Summit. I'm pretty sure this year's is now Be the Karens, because that has blown up our Twitter handle and our discussion on the chat box here. So good job on making the tagline of this year's conference. An interesting question here for you. You shared some data about brands and brand loyalty, but a lot of farms today don't really have control of how their product is branded or the direct consumer connection through marketing. So how that product actually ends up appearing on the shelf and is marketed. So how do you address that disconnect between the fact that farmers are out there telling their stories, but then there's a brand that may or may not be saying something that's consistent with what the farmers are saying?
You know what? I would actually push that back on the brand, because there has been a disconnect, and there has been, a big disconnect between our supply chain and our brands. And when these things have happened, and when these activist attacks have been brought to light, there has been this very, very easy ability for a brand to just distance themselves from a farm, right? A specific farm. And we cannot do that anymore. Our brands need to stand behind our farmers. and back them up. So I would encourage, if you are a brand or an organization on this call, to start working with your supply chain, start working with your farmers down the line so that you guys can have consistent messaging. And also, if something does happen, that you already have that relationship established and can work through it together.
And I was going to piggyback on that, also ask you, so you have a farm, but you're also a veterinarian. And since I've known you, you've been a veterinarian for companies. So how have your companies that you've worked with supported your efforts and helped you do the engagement that you're doing, since it's not necessarily on their behalf?
Other than, it's, reusing our resources, making sure that what I'm putting out there is in line with what that company believes in themselves is really critically important. And so asking them for resources, I'm not a PR person, I'm not a marketing person, but we have teams that are, and that I can use those as resources for information. But you have to ask and you have to reach out. And then, the biggest scary thing is that these companies now have legal teams. And so you have to watch what you're saying on social media. And that's important. And I've always advocated that not everyone should probably be on social media and advocating, I'll be honest. But if there are people out there that are doing it really well and they are using really, really good resources, so making sure that what we're putting out there also is supported by the industry.
Great. So Ryan and Tara, first of all, there's a compliment. Awesome job, Ryan. But then there is an actual question for both of you. So you both mentioned kind of farmer on farmer crime, whether it's crop farmers and livestock farmers or farmers of different sizes. So how do you recommend that we respond to that? How do we address it? Should we comment on those? Should we have private conversations? What should we do when we see that kind of stuff out there? I'll let Ryan start.
Yeah, I think it's important that there is an open dialogue between those individuals or whoever it may be. And if we are seeing things on other people's posts where people are commenting, yeah, I think it is a responsibility that we should have, that we should try and chime in and kind of just try and cool the situation or whatever it may be, but also to just really try and help each other out and be kind about it, be nice about it, and so that you're not hurting either individual, but that you're really trying to uplift it and help those people out.
And Tara?
I think maybe a little bit of education, like whether that be from like our state and regions, like our SR teams for checkoff dollars. I think that just a lot of farmers maybe aren't aware of the implications and the backlash from that kind of thing. I know when I saw some of the posts about the bee populations, for a split second, I was like, oh my gosh, how terrible. And then even knowing what I know, you still see something like that. And you have to remind yourself to stop and think, who put it out there? What's the source? Just all the general things. And so I think just farmer education, having conversations like this, sharing, I'm sure Ryan can share stories that I have consumers that have said oh, well, why do you hate this type of farmer? And it looks bad. And I think when farmers realize how bad it looks to consumers, it makes them stop and kind of think about it. Consumers want choices, just like Ryan said. There's plenty of room in the fridge. I mean, I have 4 different types of milk in my fridge: strawberry chocolate, a vanilla, and a regular. We all want our choices. I think I have 3 types of ice cream. So just reminding farmers of that, that Ryan's not taking away our market and we're not taking away his. There's room for both.
Yeah, I think the biggest competitor to milk is bottled water, right? It's not.
Correct. Yes. So, and I think milk still has 96% market penetration in fridges. Even within our own, we're seeing blends of milks and people are loving that, and, higher protein milks. There's so many options we could go on and on about. And so it's not an us versus them at all, in my opinion. And I think marketing, we have to be careful with the marketing side of that too, that we keep that all in mind.
And that's what I'll go ahead and ask you now, since you brought that up. So how would you respond to somebody that says, well, that's just me marketing my product? I'm going to share an infographic. There's a question here about the benefit of real milk versus plant-based. I'm not necessarily trying to denigrate plant-based. I'm trying to promote my own. Or, I'm a local beef producer, so I'm going to put on my Facebook page about how it's pasture raised and everything. And that's how I market my product. So how would you respond to that response of, well, I have to differentiate, so how can I do that without being negative?
I think there's a fine line there, and I think we all can appreciate how difficult that is. We want to market our product. We want to get as much of the market share as possible. For me, I think that it's very easy to say, if you're looking for a protein in your milk, whole milk is the source of great protein. If you're looking for a low calorie option, you could choose almond milk. Like, I think there's ways to market your product without bad mouthing another product. Actually, I get turned off by brands with that. Like, I even know, the organic versus conventional. I think that you could show pictures of your cows, actual cows grazing on a pasture, without saying conventional farms lock up their cows. Like, that you don't have to go there. Like, you can, if your product is so good and you truly believe in it, you should only have to talk about your product. You shouldn't have to talk about another product to make your product look better. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it's coming across the way I'm thinking it in my brain.
Yep.
Amen to that, Tara.
I was gonna.
Yeah, go ahead. As the fence sitter between livestock and crop, how would you respond to that notion of competition?
I had a great conversation with. We had a meeting. So I'm part of Blue Diamond. So that's it's a co-op, and so it's grower owned. And so we have these meetings that we do monthly. And so I was with a group of growers on a Zoom meeting, and there's probably 50 of us or so. And I mentioned that was going to be speaking here and talking about animal agriculture and kind of the difference, and the argument kind of going on that we see with dairy and almond milk and things like that. And it was really interesting hearing from some of the guys that we have working in the office with Blue Diamond, and how they realized that. They said, hey, we have a lot of growers who are almond growers who are also dairymen, and they would never allow us to put a commercial or to produce anything out there that would suggest to stop, choosing dairy or anything like that, because that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to take anyone's business. We're not here to convince anyone otherwise. And it was really interesting too, talking kind of about labeling, because as a poultry grower, livestock and cattle and things like that, of course, you hear these things Beyond Meat and or whatever it may be that they use the labels to really show, they're using the same, they call it meat when it's not. And same thing with almond milk, calling it milk. And that's one thing that was really interesting. They talked about, they really focus on that with the labeling with Blue Diamond, because right now it's actually a federal standard to have the label say almond milk on it. But if you notice, what's really cool with us is on our containers, the almond milk is this really kind of small print. They really advertise it as called Almond Breeze. So that way they're like, because they're like, we know it's going to come, and we hope, it gets to the point where it does come down, where they decide to, remove that label, that people know what they're buying. Consumers are smart enough. They know what they're buying.
Thank you. So Michelle, you are a Facebook power user and have quite a large following there. So I'll direct this to you. Do you use a personal page, or do you have a business page that you engage on Facebook, and why? Do you have one versus the other?
Yeah, I definitely keep it separate. My personal page is my personal page that's only for my close friends and family. And then my business page is Farm Babe. So if you just go to Farm Babe, that's where I do all of my outreach and really kind of keep that separate. So yeah, try to, I think it is important to kind of like keep some like privacy in parts of your life, right? Like, I don't need the whole world knowing. Like, I don't want the vegan activists to be able to track down where I live. So I'm pretty vague about where I live in my Farm Babe page, but then on my personal page, I only let very select people in that I trust, that I've known for a long time.
I'll direct this next one to you as well. So do you have 3 to 5 questions that you would suggest that people ask ourselves about information or things they're seeing, the source of information, to help know the validity of posts? So
that's a great
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say to check the author, check the source. check the author. Just do a quick Google search. A lot of times if I take the author's name, I'll put it in a Google search with words like keywords like vegan or animal rights, and just see what kind of pops up. To some of the other points that have been said today, you know, people will come to you and say, well, I really just want to learn more. And oftentimes that's the case. But if you have any inkling that there's a little bit of suspicion, take a second, Google their name, look them up on Facebook, see if they're tied to any animal rights groups at all. It doesn't take long to do that, but just search, just do a quick search, find out who they are. You can also see in different articles, it might say, well, studies show, but then do they actually post that study? Like, is there actual credible research behind what they're saying? And if so, check it out, you know, kind of who funded it. We know that there's a lot of funding behind animal rights activist groups. Every so often somebody says, well, that was funded by the dairy industry, so we can't trust it. It's just biased. And it's like, well, if you don't trust the dairy industry to teach you about dairy, then who do you trust? And then they're kind of like, oh, you talk to Apple about your iPhone and you talk to GMC about your truck. So doesn't it make sense to talk to a dairy farmer or somebody that has a PhD in dairy science to get the real facts? So when you kind of put that spin back on the person and say, well, of course, you know, I think that helps. But yeah, I would say those are kind of like my top points, is to really check the source, funding, Google the author, find out what their background is. And, you know, is there like some sort of agenda tied to it, and go straight to the source for your information.
There's a suggestion that you write a blog post about that, and they would love to share it. So.
Yeah, I have. Actually, I have.
I was thinking you did. That's why I picked that one.
It's on agdaily.com. You can search for that on Ag Daily. I think the title was How to Detect Pseudoscience. I think I have to double check because I wrote it like last year. But thanks for the reminder. I should reshare it.
Yeah, you can drop it in the chat box here too.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
So Dr. Hake, we'll bounce back to you. So how do you, and my question would be, do you engage with activists? So when you get those posts on your comments or things like that, do you respond? Do you not respond? What are kind of your rules and guidelines? Because as this question asker noted, it can get ugly.
It can get ugly really, really fast. And I don't know about everybody else on this board, but I'm still waiting for my payout from Big Ag, right? I get that a lot. So, you know, it depends honestly on the day and how much time and resources I can put into these. At this point in, you know, in my career and how long I've been doing this, a lot of times it's not worth engaging with most of these people. If they're coming across with hate, it automatically becomes a block and delete, and that's the policy that I have posted on my page. If it is a legitimate question about the care of the animals or why we do certain things, I will definitely engage with those people. And I'll be honest, a lot of those legitimate questions come in through a private message. They don't actually put it in the comments. So my policy is honestly block and delete. If I'm feeling a little froggy that day, I might engage for a little while before I block and delete, but that's usually the policy.
Ryan, I'm guessing a lot of our attendees might be thinking this. So maybe they don't want to have their own page, or they're not a farmer, they work for an association, so they don't necessarily think that they're the right fit to be on the front lines, but they want to help spread good, accurate information. So what's your advice for those folks?
Yeah, I think, you know, not to say that, you know, everyone should be on social media, like we've said before. I think Marissa was saying that, you know, not everyone should be trying to advocate as strongly as maybe we are, or things like that. Maybe you do have, you know, too much going on, or whatever it may be. But I would hope that most people even have at least a personal, you know, social media page, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, whatever it may be. Even if they just share that post that we make or that someone else makes to their friends and family, they'll see that, and that kind of just continues to get passed on. So I think sometimes it's easy for us to just really want to share the funny things that we see, and share those kind of things on our social media pages. But if we can really see something that, hey, you know what, this is going to benefit a lot of people if they see this, share it on their page. And even if they, you know, maybe on their operation, they don't want to be the one that's making the posts or or taken the time to do that, but maybe someone in their operation can, that they trust, that they are gonna show their operation on a good side. And so maybe finding someone in your family or finding someone in your operation that would enjoy doing that as part of their job, is really making kind of a social media presence for your operation. I think that really benefits your operation and agriculture as a whole.
Thank you. So Marissa, you kind of shared your slide that had all your different identities. So you're not just a farmer or a veterinarian, you're a mom, you have these other hobbies. So there's a question about what you might be doing to connect more directly with consumers around some of those shared interests. So this question asker, and I've heard this too, has heard some online ag advocates say that their most effective ways to communicate are joining private Facebook groups about recipes or being a mom or things like that, and engaging there, that we would never even see that because it's not public, but it's going a long way. So are you doing things like that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Through either, mom or school groups. During this COVID-19, I've personally been donating dairy to just people in the community that need it. And through those groups, I'm a wannabe workout person. I'm part of some physical activity groups, and I share in there about the nutrition of dairy and which dairy products might be better for, say, a keto lifestyle or these different lifestyles that they can fit in. So yeah, definitely sharing beyond just the public platform is very effective. And again, that goes back to that movable middle. Those are the people that we can reach with this information.
And Tara, you showed us your adorable daughter, and Michelle alluded to earlier maybe taking some security measures about what you share, whether it's your address or whatever. So do you take any certain precautions with what kind of information you put out there on your page that others should be thinking about too?
Yeah, similar to what Michelle said, I tend to just say I live in Eastern New Mexico, and I don't get super specific. It's one of the reasons I chose like a name outside of my name for my social media page. I chose not to share my farm name, and I usually don't unless it's like a dairy publication or something. I'm also a part of, a family farm, multi-generational, multi-siblings, and not everyone is as comfortable. There's varying degrees of how comfortable they are about me sharing the actual farm and the farm name. And so I definitely am cautious there. I pretty much feel like my life is an open book, and that I share my daughters, our day-to-day life, but there is some boundaries there about the farm name, the farm location. You'll get messages of people asking to come to the farm and just like Michelle said, kind of do a quick search of who they are. But, we don't offer right now farm tours. And so we're just not set up for that. So I usually say no to that. It may be something we consider in the future, but there's definitely some limitations there. And I think you have to figure that out for yourself. Everyone is comfortable with different things. And so you just have to figure it out. And within your operation, just like I said, it's not just my decision. It's not just my farm. And so taking everybody's thoughts into consideration when choosing to share online.
Thank you. So Michelle, you shared a nightmare story about some negativity on social media that you turned into a positive. How about a positive story? So what was a successful interaction you've had and what made it successful?
Oh gosh, there's a lot, fortunately. I know it's kind of easy to focus on the doom and gloom, right? But when you have just, that's really like 1% of it. Gosh, I've seen people cry before, like happy tears, like when you reach through to somebody. Like I remember one specific incident where I talked to this gal who used to have an eating disorder. And when she sat in one of my talks, she was crying afterwards because she knew what it felt like to overcome fear in food. And that's really the ultimate reason why I started Farm Babe, is to myth bust and to help people not fear their food. So that's really kind of been my platform, is like, I want people to celebrate and appreciate and understand where their food comes from, so that you're not scaring people. That's really what drives me bonkers the most, is like, talk about what you do well. Don't put down other people or fear. This is a really great thing to tell your friends or whatnot when they're wondering what to buy. Fear is a motivator. It sells. Fear sells. And so to raise awareness on that and say, hey, look, it's really not scary. So I have a lot of instances like that. Like when you just get emails from a mom or somebody that just says, thank you. I had no idea what to feed my kids, or like you get a email from a student, like a college student, saying you really helped me write, this assignment. You brought a lot of facts about factory farming, where you can kind of bust those myths and help people realize, animals are cared very well for, and there is a lot of science. And remember that a majority of people are in the movable middle, and they are meat eaters. So when you say something like that, like, actually, animals are treated very well on farms, regardless of size or label, and here's why. They're kind of like, oh, thank God I could eat beef again. So there's a lot of success stories. Yeah. So definitely the negativity is such a small percentage. I always encourage everybody to advocate, because there's a lot of success that comes of it. Thank you.
I think one of our speakers yesterday is just the idea of giving permission. We're reassuring people that it's okay to make their food choices, and they can feel confident and that they're supporting good people. So that's really what's all about, is soothing some of those fears.
Right.
So Ryan, there's a question in the box here, and it kind of gets to the poll question I started with, which talks about time. So obviously, as a farmer, rancher, you have plenty on your plate. So how much time would you say your social media engagement takes up on a weekly basis between creating content, moderating, responding to things? How much of a time commitment is this for you?
For me, like the level of advocacy that I'm trying to approach, it is very time consuming. Especially when you add in all the different platforms. Especially, I really have been trying to get back focused onto the YouTube channel. And YouTube, it eats up so much of your time, because there's not only the filming that you have to do, but the editing and uploading and all of this. It really does take a lot of time. One thing that I really enjoy about Instagram is that it's a real quick way to be able to share, showcase what you're doing throughout the day, with the stories part of Instagram. And I really feel like that the agricultural community on Instagram is doing a pretty good job of kind of joining together. And there's a lot of fun that goes along with it. I know I kind of get associated with that a lot of times, is kind of the conversations I have with other farmers, and I have a lot of fun with doing that. And I think people enjoy seeing that camaraderie, and they enjoy seeing that, hey, they're normal people, they're fun people, and they have the same interests that we do. So I think really just knowing what platforms that you're comfortable with, and knowing what you are comfortable posting. You don't have to post every single day like we do. You don't have to post, you can post once a month if you want to. Even just a post here and there really does help that out. And I really would like, people to try and get more involved, even in the stories. Like I said, you can really just get that going.
Great. Well, to close here, we're going to do a lightning round and answer a question here. I'm going to add a question. So what's your favorite social media platform? And make sure you tell us how to follow you there. And then secondly, do you have a favorite app that you use to create content? So to design posts or create videos or whatever, what's your favorite app that we need to be sure to download? We'll go in the order you spoke. So we'll start with Dr. Haig.
Yeah, so I think my favorite is Instagram. Like Ryan said, you get to interact quickly. It's a day-to-day, and people tend to have a lot of fun on Instagram. And then the apps that I use Canva for some of the editing to make them look pretty. And then I also use a video editor. So if I take snippets of videos, that I can add them together. And so those are my two main ones.
And you are Calf Vet on Instagram.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Calf Vet on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not very active on Twitter.
I know you hate it.
I hate Twitter, you guys. I hate Twitter, but I'm there.
She was one of our College Aggies Online mentors, and she's like, oh, I have to use Twitter for this. I should have said no.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my favorite platform is Instagram for sure. I really like the camaraderie that we have, and just the daily interactions that we get to have with other farmers, and not just farmers, just anybody can tag us in stories. That's what's fun about it. It's not just farmers who are tagging each other. We get tagged in things all the time from just people that are either, I get stories sometimes from people who live in the city. Hey, I got some almonds today, or I got some almond milk today. And so things like that's really cool. But I can be found on Instagram, YouTube, at California Farmer. So. What did you
Ryan,
say?
can you clarify how you say almonds for me, please?
Oh,
Well, it was interesting. He said almond milk, but then when just referring to the nut, he said almonds. So that
almonds, yeah, that's just something in our area that a lot of the growers, that's what they call it. It's a silent L, just like the salmon. You know, salmon's got an
because
L.
they shake the L out of them, right?
Yeah, they shake. That's the joke. Their almonds were on the tree, and then you shake the L out of them.
All right,
Love
Tara.
it.
So I'm going to probably say the same things as Ryan and Marissa. I love Instagram. I'm scared to death of YouTube. I've gotten on TikTok, but I feel like every other 30-something-year-old on TikTok too old for this app. So you can find me on Instagram the most at New Mexico Milkmaid, and on Facebook at New Mexico Milkmaid. I'm also begrudgingly on Twitter at NM Milkmaid, but I am there. And then my favorite apps to use for photo editing is Snapseed, followed by Viscom, or however you say it, Visco. And like Marissa, if I want to put videos together, I love InShot. I don't have an iPhone, I know. So I think that limits you with Androids on what video apps you can use, and InShot is really great. So there you go.
Great. And Michelle.
So my favorite is Facebook. A lot of mine is more like link-based and article and information-based. So Instagram's not always the best. That's probably one that I'm not very active on. I mean, I'm still on Instagram, but Facebook is definitely my forte. And my favorite apps would be, I have tried InShot, but I actually prefer KindMaster. I'm trying to do more with videos, but also trying to just focus on doing what I do best, which is not always video, but I'm trying. I'm on YouTube, trying the TikTok thing. But so KindMaster has been good for me to edit videos. And as far as memes, infographics, anything like that, I actually use an app that probably nobody's ever heard of because it's super basic, but it's called YouDoodle, like Y-O-U, Doodle. And it's really got hardly any bells and whistles, which is why I like it, because I'm actually not very tech savvy, believe it or not. So anything for me that's the simpler, the better is better. So I use YouDoodle for all my memes, or there's also a meme generator app. I think it's actually called Meme Generator, super basic, I know. Yeah, Meme Generator. And it takes 2 seconds because all the images are already created for you. So you just put in the text and you're done. So it's super easy. So, and where you can follow me is on the screen. You can find Farm Babe on Facebook or at the Farm Babe on anything else.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for this very engaging discussion. All of your social media platforms will be blown up with notifications when you hop off of here, I'm sure. I appreciate your time and joining us this afternoon.